in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
Good morning, Toledo Church of Christ online. My name is Ben, and I'm so excited that all of you could be here to hear the lesson today. We're just going to jump right into it, but before we do that, I'd like to briefly mention, if you are new here and you'd like to learn more about us or about the Bible, you can email us in the link down below in the description. So let's get straight into it. The title of my lesson today is The Impact of Christ, and we're going to be looking at Mark chapter 5. So if you guys want to turn to Mark 5, starting in verse 1, it reads, "They went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day, among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, 'What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me.' For Jesus had said to him, 'Come out of this man, you impure spirit.' Then Jesus asked him, 'What is your name?' 'My name is Legion,' he replied, 'for we are many.' And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, 'Send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them.' He gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and the countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. They came to Jesus. They saw the man who had possessed by the region of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man, and told about the pigs as well. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, 'Go home to your own people, and tell them how much the Lord has done for you, and how he has had mercy on you.' So the man went away and began to tell all in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him. And all the people were amazed. So my first point is on those with demons. So here we have the scene of a man who has had many demons. The demon's name was literally Legion, which meant we are many. And so I believe that this is definitely a literal story of a man with many demons, but I think it's also to be interpreted as metaphorical. And so what exactly does that mean? What does having demons mean metaphorically? I think some of us in pop culture, we may have heard of songs about conquering demons, or we may have heard that phrase before. But basically, someone's demon is something that holds them back, whether it's a character flaw, something in their life, but something that is torturous, something they cannot overcome. Troubles in life, character flaws, like I said, etc. And here with this man, he had many demons. And it's very similar to people in the world. People are out there and they're struggling. Things are overwhelming. People have many demons oftentimes. And I'd like to just use myself as an example. And I know I've said this a couple of times before, but it means everything to me. Before I was a disciple, I had a ton of demons. I was battling with loneliness once I got to college. I was battling with depression. And before my college days, I had a really sour life of just using people and manipulating people, and it was just not fulfilling at all. And then especially once I got to college, there's the loneliness, and then bad grades started to happen, and I just felt like I just wanted to end it all. And no matter what I was doing, I couldn't find the good friends. I couldn't get out of this depression and loneliness, even though there were people surrounded by me everywhere. And I wanted to end it, and so I tried, and luckily, I'm still here today. But it was after that moment, when I was at my very lowest, is when I would eventually come to find Christ. And, I got reached out to and started studying the Bible, and before you knew it, I was getting baptized. I was becoming a disciple and joining the ministry and joining the kingdom. And, my whole entire life was just turned upside down. I was given purpose and meaning, and I was able to feel joy. And the reason was because I had Christ. Christ saved me. He took my demons and he eliminated them, just like he did with the man here. And so there are many people out there that are like how I was in the world. And maybe you yourselves know exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Maybe you were there too. It's a feeling of hopelessness, of being lost. This man in the story was controlled by his demons, and nobody could help him. It says there were people that chained him down, but his demons broke through those chains, and nothing could help him. Nobody could help. And then that's when Christ came into his life. And we can see, just look at what Christ did for him. That he gave him purpose. He rescued him from his demons. He exorcised the demons. They all went into the pigs, and he no longer struggled with them. It's the same thing for disciples. We struggle with things, but it's nowhere near the same level of control of before we knew Christ, because we know that we have a Savior and we are loved. And, Christ gave him a new purpose. He said, go out into the city and your home and tell everybody what I have done for you. He rescued him from his darkness. And I think it's very important to note when it says the Decapolis, that's actually 10 different cities. And I was looking at a map when I was studying this out, and it's 10 different cities that are well over like 100 square miles. And it's just like he probably spent the rest of his life just telling everybody the good news that Christ had done for him. So it's the same for us. Christ has saved us from our demons, and the world is out there suffering, and Christ wants us to go and tell the world. Let's move on to our next point. We're going to be in Mark 5, starting in verse 21. So it reads, when Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue leaders, named Jairus, came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, my little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live. So Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed and pressed around him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all that she had, yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, who touched my clothes? You see the people crowding against you, his disciples answered, and yet you ask, who touched me? But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering. While Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. Your daughter is dead, they said. Why bother the teacher anymore? Overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, don't be afraid, just believe. He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion, with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." They laughed at him. And he put them all out. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in to where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this, they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this and told them to give her something to eat. So my second point is on those who are faithful. So here we have another story of a couple of people. We have a man who comes up to Jesus and says, "Jesus, help me, my daughter is dying." And then we have another woman who comes up and touches Jesus because she had an incurable sickness. And so with both of these people, they're in deep distress. They are in these situations where all seems lost. And much like the guy with the demons, nobody could help them. Nothing more could be done. And yet, when they hear about Christ, something amazing happens. They begin to have hope. After everything was taken from them, they reach out to Christ. Everything in their life, probably the most important things to them, be it the man's daughter or the woman's just health and all her money, everything was seen to be taken from them. And it was then that they decided, now is the time that I want to have faith. The woman, she tries to steal Jesus' power by touching him. And the man comes and asks Jesus to save his dying daughter. Both of these options are just kind of way out of the blue. Nothing else worked. So they might as well just have faith, and that's what they chose to do. And, this is exactly what Christ wanted. Christ wasn't angry with the woman sneaking around. Christ wasn't angry with the man asking this ridiculous request. But no, he was amazed. Christ, he saved many. He helped many. He served many people. But for the most part, nobody really had faith. Especially a good example would be thinking about the 5,000. After he fed and helped all those people, like a couple days later, they just all deserted him because he wasn't doing those great miracles anymore. But it's different with this woman and with this man. They had true faith because they lost everything. And so, we reach out to many people, and we help many people, and we serve many people here in our lives today. And I know it can get discouraging when people don't respond faithfully, when, people just ignore the message of Christ. But be encouraged, church, because these people are out there, and these people are looking for Christ. And these are the people that make it all worth it. It's the faithful that get the most out of Christ. And just like we can see from the man who had the demons, from the woman who had the sickness, and from the man who had the dying daughter, like Christ just completely changed these people's lives, and they were faithful enough to live it out. They were faithful enough to continue to believe, to have their lives changed. And so, in conclusion, as we continue to help others, both physically and spiritually, let us remember the impact that Christ has on people. There are many people that have many demons, and there are people that they just need Christ because Christ is the only thing and person that can truly help them. And it's hard for people to understand that and come to that conclusions themselves, and that's why we're here. So, as we continue to live like Christ in Toledo, let us remember these things. Thank you.
Let's get to our feet. We're going to worship our God together. Come on, if you came to praise, lift those hands up. Praise with all you got. Come on, here we go. Woo! To the King of glory and light, all praises. To the only right. Yeah, we do. Woo. Come see what love has done. Amazing. He bought us with his blood, our Savior. The cross has overcome. We worship you, yeah. Yeah, here we go. We shout, Hosanna, Jesus, he saves. Shout, Hosanna, he rose from the grave. Come and lift him up, Hosanna. Oh, now let the lost be found, forgiven. Death could not hold him down. He's risen. So let the saints cry out. We worship you, yeah. We worship you. Shout, Hosanna, Jesus, he saves. Shout, Hosanna, he rose from the grave. Come and lift him up, Hosanna, yeah. Come on, let the battle cry of the saints ring out with one voice. The same power that rolled the stone away, the same power alive in us today. King Jesus, we call upon your name, other name, yes we do, yeah. The same power that rolled the stone away, the same power alive in us today. King Jesus, we call upon your name, no other name. We shout, Hosanna, Jesus, he saves. Shout, Hosanna, he rose from the grave. Come and lift him up, Hosanna. Shout, Hosanna, Jesus, he saves. Shout, Hosanna, he rose from the grave. Come and lift him up, Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. Oh, hallelujah. It's so good to be worshiping together today. Come on, why don't you let a cry out? Come on, praise his name. Praise hallelujah. Here we go. Woo!
Ain't no rock gonna stand in my place. As long as I'm alive, glorify his holy name. Ain't no rock gonna stand in my place. As long as I'm alive, glorify his holy name. You've got to pray.